All right. We're continuing the Sicha of the Rebbe about this week's Torah portion, Shmini. And the Rebbe begins by asking a question which is asked by one of the commentators on the Torah, the Kli Yakar. Kli Yakar Rebbe Ephraim Shlomo Lunchitz lived about 400 years ago, and he asks a very deep and beautiful question. And the question is, it seems the name of this week's Torah portion is not accurate. Why? Because the name is number 8. This is the 8th day of the, so I'll make this bigger. One more. Okay. The number 8 seems to imply, what happened over here? 1 minute. Number 8 seems to imply that there's a way to move this over. Okay, I'll give up on that idea. There we go. The number 8 seems to imply that this is the last number of a series, right? Last number of a series. Like, for instance, a child is 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old. When he gets to be 8 years old, because he lived already 7 years. And so the 8th is just a continuation. There's going to be a number 9. But here it's not relevant. Why? Because this number 8 was preceded, yes, by 7. 7, yes, true. But it was preceded by 7 days of preparation. And this 8th day is not one of the days of preparation. This is not one of the days of preparation. There were 7 days, what's called the Miluim. There were 7 days to prepare for the opening of the tabernacle. And the 8th day, the tabernacle was open. But the 8th day is not a day of preparation. There were 7 days of preparation. And this day is not the 8th day of preparation. This is the day that they waited for. It's like a woman being pregnant for 9 months. And when the child gives birth, you say, oh, he's born today. He's exactly 9 months old. What do you mean he's not 9 months old? What are you talking about? All right, 9 months in a day. But it's not 9 months a day. Now he starts to be born. Now he's just born. This begins his life. The same thing here. This is not the 8th day. This is not a continuation of the previous 7 days. It's not one of the days of pregnancy, you want to call it. Of preparation. So says the Rebbe, the reason is it wants to stress that this day is not to be considered, don't think it's like any one of the other days. It's not just another day. If you would say that this is a new day, so you might think, okay, this is a new period. A new period in counting. A new period in counting. It's not just a new period in counting. It's not just new. It's completely unlike any other counting that's ever been in the history of the world. It's totally unlike. If you would start from number 1, so you say, okay, maybe this number 1 is something like the number 1 of the days of preparation. This is just a different thing. It's not so. This is something which is totally above and beyond any type of counting that ever was before, even the counting of the 7 days of the preparation, even the counting of the 7 days of creation. This is a day which is totally outside of creation. But why is it called number 7? Because it depends on the days of creation. This was a day of incredible miracles. God's presence appeared to the Jewish people, something the Jewish people couldn't do on their own. God decided to do it on his own, but it depended on the Jewish people preparing. The Jewish people had to prepare. If the Jewish people did not prepare, then there wouldn't be this 8th day. So that's coming to tell you, on one hand, this number 8 is totally above. This is the day when God himself appeared in the Holy Temple, just like it was on Mount Sinai. God appeared. On Mount Sinai, how did God appear? Just did it on his own. Right? Nothing's ever been anything vaguely like it in the history of the world. Nobody even claimed such a thing. And the same thing happened here in the Holy Temple. God actually appeared in a tent. Huh? You don't get that every day. You don't get that any day. The essence of God actually appeared in a tent. No, that's an amazing thing. It's got absolutely nothing to do with the 7 days of preparation. It says that's why they call it the number 8, to tell you that it has absolutely nothing to do with the previous days. But if you didn't have those previous days, you wouldn't have had this number 8. And this is a very important lesson for us, that we have to serve God with all we can, and we can expect big results, amazing results, but don't think you understand what the results are going to be, because it can be something that's so completely unlike what you did to prepare these results that it's totally mind-blowing. Okay, let's see. Says the Rebbe, for instance, this is where we left off last time. For instance, we have on Shabbat, there's 2 levels of Shabbat. The Jewish Shabbat is only given to the Jewish people. Non-Jewish people are not supposed to rest on Shabbat. They're not supposed to even make a day of Shabbat for themselves. Shabbat is purely for the Jews. What's the thing of Shabbat? Shabbat is 2 aspects of Shabbat. One aspect of Shabbat is it's a day of rest. It says after the 6 days, you get the 7th day. But this is let's do here a dugma of them. We'll go over this. We did this yesterday. Let's do a dugma of them. An example of this, how there can be days of preparation, but the result that you get is something incredibly different, right? It's like telling a person, like I gave the example before, sew a bag of a sack. A sack, like a sackcloth, a sack, make a sack. Okay, you worked, you made a sack, yes, okay, come over here, and you fill it up with diamonds. You never thought that the sack itself is worth, 50 cents, who knows, a dollar. The diamonds are worth, $100 million. Who would ever dream of such a? That's the idea. Of you have to work, you have to do your work, but the blessing that God gives inside of it is something which is totally not commensurate to the work you do. Okay, friends, let's take Shabbos. Shabbos, for instance, it says, a dugma of them is Shabbos. Shabbos, Zayin and Bechalal, Faran, Sfei Madrigas. There's 2 levels of Shabbat. Aleph, is Einer from the Shiva Yomei Binyan. It's one of the 7 days of creation. Nor in Fargleich mit the Friedrich Zextag, but if you compare it to the previous 6 days, as Shabbat is holy. But the Kedusha, but the holiness of Shabbat is like verbunden, it's connected with the creation. Namely what's called the chain of creation, the order, spiritual order of creation. Nature, spiritual nature, but connected. And this is Shabbat, this aspect of Shabbat is drawn down by the Jews. So if them it states lasot at the Shabbat, that we have to make the Shabbat, we prepare for the Shabbat, buy food for the Shabbat, you cook for the Shabbat. Then there's number 2. Shabbat is a ma'en la'atid. Shabbat is something like the future. From the Yom Shekula Shabbat. This is a higher level of Shabbat. Shabbat is hinting at this future day of Shabbat, the future redemption. The day was going to be totally Shabbat. Was is Hecher, which is higher from Ishtalshel, which is higher than the whole entire creation, even the spiritual creation. This is God's day. Und wie gesagt früher, like we said before, ken mensu der madrega nitzu come, and you can't come through any sort of your own work. All you can do is just make a vessel for it. Nor is a vert nimshach milamayla. This is the thing that God decides to give on His own. B'derech esrusa de la'ela. This is what's called an arousal from above. Via state, like it says in the Talmud, as oiv der bechina from Shabbos. On this level of Shabbat, the higher level of Shabbat, Zok the Eibusher, God says, Matana Tova Yeshli Bebeit Genuzai. I have a good free gift in my store, my treasure house, and it's called Shabbat. The Medrega, this level from Shabbat, is a matana from Lamayla. It's a gift from above. Was a matana. That's why there's so many prohibitions on Shabbat, because it's so precious. You just have to appreciate it. Don't do anything to disturb the holiness of Shabbat. It's God's day. It's not your day. God is just letting us use it. That's the higher aspect of Shabbat. That's a gift. This comes from a Kabbalah Durach, Nit Durach Avoda. This is a gift, not according to what you do. That's what I'm saying. What I said before about making a sack and stuff for this rich man, and then he fills it up with diamonds, precious stones. Nor davka, while there's no sin, but a gift is because the one who's giving it, he wants to give the gift. Oy man git es zulib zayin avoda. If the gift is given according to your work, then that's called a wage. It means you earned it. It's not a gift. Aber from deswegen, nevertheless, this higher level of Shabbat will be drawn only when there is work. Same thing like I said before. He makes the sack, right? The sack costs $1, and he gets filled. If he didn't make the sack, you wouldn't have any way to hold on to these diamonds. Kamaimer, like the rabbis say, Misha Torach Be'erev Shabbat, a person that works on Shabbat, he will eat on Shabbat. He'll have what to eat on Shabbos. Both of the levels of Shabbos. This means taka. Nit as the avoda, that your service, this arouses that you deserve this gift from God of Shabbat. As his aber vi Razal Zak, but it's like the rabbis say, Ilav the avid leinicha, the nafshe lo yavid lamatana. If a person gives a gift, usually you give a gift to somebody that you like. You have some reason for liking. When the makabel vetim nit for shafen, shat kein nachas ruach, if the one that you're giving the gift to did not find favor in your eyes, veltim dir nosen matana nit given, you wouldn't give it to him. Nor when the matana, only when you give a gift. And the nachas ruach, therefore, I get pleasure from this person, so I give him a gift. They used to have, I remember they used to send around on video. Some guy used to go in the streets with like $1,000, and they would ask people if they would do him. He says, "I haven't got any money. Would you give me $1 for the for a bus, or give me whatever it is for a cup of coffee?" And most people would say no. And usually the poor people would say, "Okay, I got $1." Give it to them. I said, "Oh, you gave me $1. I'm giving you $1,000. I don't really need the money." "Oh, thank you." He didn't just go on the street and give away money for no reason. But still, this guy, he gave him $1. He gave him $1,000, but didn't think he was going to get anything back. Same thing, L'Avdil, was with God. God says to the Jewish people, "I want you to do something for me, and I'm going to give you this tremendous gift, and it's called Shabbat." You have to do a little something. You have to find favor, at least in God's eyes, with a little sort of a turn, something. Even though you give more, much more than the pleasure that you gave to him, right? When in them besteht, and in this is 1 minute. Too big. The Shivas Yemei Miluim, that's the whole idea of the 7 days of inauguration of the tabernacle. As B'Shas is given Shlemus Avoda, that's what it's coming to tell us. Even though the 8th day in the making of the tabernacle was completely nothing to do with the days of preparation. The other days were days of preparation, and the 8th day it's not the 8th day of preparation. It was something totally different. It was a revelation of pure godliness, even though that this was not a complete revelation. Is nimshach gaven oich de'asrusa de la'ela mitzad atzmo, that God revealed Himself on His own. The Rebbe, therefore, haste as mitten name Shmini. But nevertheless, because it depended on the 7 days before it, so therefore it's called on the 8th day. Well, it's called Noch der Avoda because it comes after the service of the 7th. So this is a very basic principle in Judaism, that we have to do something. And if we do something, even a little bit, then the reaction of God in this physical world will be infinitely greater than we can possibly imagine. Infinitely positive. True, up to now, we haven't, there's been a lot of, how do you say, we're still waiting. But that's what Judaism is. What can we do? But Judaism does not stress, even though it certainly does believe that there is, going to heaven. Going to heaven is very, very wonderful. It's a very good thing. It certainly does exist. There is reward and punishment. But that, so to speak, going to heaven is not our business. Going to business, it is God's business. Our business is this world, and we have to do whatever we can. And that's God cares. He put us in this world. That's what we said about Tishrei. He put us in this world because he wants us to work. But when we do the work, when we make the vessels, then God fills up the vessels. That's what Judaism says. Now, according to this, we can explain the connection with Parsha Shmini with Sfirat HaOmer. Sfirat HaOmer was Bahar Bashanim Leintman Parsha Balt nach Pesach Techilas Yomei Sfira. A lot of times we read this Shmini right after. We're reading this right after Passover, and we start what's called Sfirat HaOmer. Okay, this year we don't because there's an extra month, so all the Torah portions are like pushed back 1 month. But when there's usually we read this, the Shmini. This is read immediately after Passover, the intermediate days of Passover, whatever, Shmini. So there's this commandment, which is the commandment that's called counting the Omer, Sfirat HaOmer. Sfirat HaOmer, there were 50 days between the Jews going out of Egypt and receiving the Torah. And the Jews counted these days, it's a commandment. They counted these days, 7 weeks. They counted the 7 weeks between going out of Egypt and receiving the Torah, 7 weeks. Really, it wasn't exactly 7 weeks, would be 49 days. They received the Torah on the 50th day. The commandment is to count 49 days. 7 weeks they count, and then after that they get a free prize, and that's the giving of the Torah, which that's something like we had right here. There had to be 7 days of preparation, and the 8th day what they got was something incomparable to the preparations that they made. They never dreamed they would get such a revelation on the 8th day, but they got it. I mean, they dreamed, they knew, they wanted God to appear, but the revelation of God is so incredibly real, and the life that we're leading now is so incredibly not real, and we react to things that are just simply not real. And our whole conception of what reality is and what we are is just not real. It's just simply not real at all. You know, it's like a person that's thinks that movies are really real, right? He watches some sort of a movie and he thinks it's really real. And he's living in this, fantasy world where he's watching whatever is Pinocchio or Donald Duck or something. And he really, he's really afraid of when, Donald Duck is going to come into the room. It's like people who live in, in that's what this world is. King David said, the whole world is like it's like a big dream. Why is it a big dream? Not because it's not real. It's because we don't see what real reality is. This world is real, but it's a very, very weak, wispy sort of reality. Right? It's like seeing things in a very, very dark room and without your glasses, right? So everything is just very fuzzy and you don't know what it is. So it's there, you just don't see what it is. It says that's the whole idea of counting the Omer. Counting the Omer means that they counted the days until they would get a blast of this reality, but they didn't know what the reality was. They had little glimpses of it when they went across the Yam Suf. It says they split the sea. People saw godliness. That was the preparation. It was very, very brief. And when they did get the revelation of Mount Sinai, they were waiting for it, and it was too much for them. They couldn't take it. Nevertheless, they did count these 49 days. And in order to receive this revelation on the 50th day, and the 49 days were a preparation somehow or other for the 50th days, But the 50th day of giving the Torah was totally incomparable in any way to what they had done before. Because that's the whole idea of counting the Omer. For Bahar Bashanim, which a lot of years, we say this immediately after Passover. Okay, so we're getting a preparation for Passover a month early, for counting the Omer, a month early. Because an extra month was added this year. Back in this the mitzvah of counting the Omer, it says in the Torah, Tispru Chamishim Yom, you have to count 50 days. Fragment, we ask the question, men selt nor einen 40 day. We only count 49 days. Un men for Emford. The answer to this is with an explanation. As Yidden, the Jewish people, they do counting. Durich there's avoda by means of their service, and a mamshech, they can draw down what's called 49 days, 49 gates of understanding. Shiva Shavuos, 7 weeks you have to count. That's the holiday is called Shavuot, festival of weeks. This means this corresponds to what's called the 7 days of creation, but here it's just 7 weeks, 7 times 7 days of creation. But to leave them, but this was Zayin Mamshich, the Avoda, the Mem Tasharim, but for this, so to speak, as a result of their counting 49 days, Gitman Zemi Lamaila, God gives them from above what's called the 50th gate. Was Eres Durach Shmini. This is something like we have over in this week's Torah portion, the number 8, the 8th day. Hecher from Shiva, higher than the 7th. Was the Rebbe, which therefore is the Amshacha from them, Shara Chamishim B'Chag HaShavuos, the drawing down, which is called the 50th gate of understanding in the holiday of Shavuot, when the Jews got the Torah. Was the Rebbe is Amshacha. This is a drawing down from Zman Matan Torah. This is the time when the Torah was given. Was Meshaz Matan Torah, in the time of the giving of the Torah is given. A Mayan. This is something like the revelation that's going to be in the future. That was the revelation that was in the Holy of Holies. And eventually this revelation is, what does it mean? Pure godliness. That's as pure, the Creator is revealed. And therefore, which basically that's all there is now. All there is the Creator, right? This world is just being created all the time from nothing. God is creating it. The only real reality is God. We just don't feel it. We're separated by millions of veils that God made to hide himself. On Mount Sinai, he took away all these veils after the 49 days. Therefore, state, therefore it says you count the 50 days, even though you don't count the 50 days. Why? Because also the 50th day, this also comes to the Jews by means of their service. Okay, so the Rebbe is hinting to us that we have to serve God and not to expect revelations and to expect results and to expect miracles, but we have absolutely no idea what these revelations and miracles, etc., are going to be. And nevertheless, God promises us that there will be true reality revealed in this world, and it all depends on our work. Even though our work is something like, expecting from an ant or a bug or something to write, a novel, right? To write a novel, War and Peace. Who wrote it? See this ant here? He wrote that. That's ridiculous. An ant can't write it. The same thing. We can't reveal God. An ant and a novel, at least they're on the same level. They're both parts of the creation. They're relevant one to the other, right? An ant can make a little mark. Who knows? You could put one of its feet into ink and it'll make a little mark. So it's possible, a chance in 1 in 25 trillion to the 25 trillionth power that he could write a novel. But a human being cannot reveal God. This is just totally impossible. Nevertheless, God says in the Torah, it'll happen. You do your work and I'll do my thing. And that's a basic of Judaism. That God says, you do your little thing down here and I'll do the totally, totally impossible and reveal my essence in this physical world, because that's what God wants to be in the physical world, as we'll talk more, God willing, tomorrow. Let's do the Yom Yom. got them all wrong. Okay, let's try it again. Today's message. My grandfather, this is the previous Rebbe speaking, so his grandfather is the Rebbe Marash, the fourth Rebbe of Chabad. My grandfather wrote in one of his Hasidic discourses that you have to learn the Torah, a portion of the Chumash, of the 5 books of Moses every day with Rashi. Because Rashi is the select of the interpretation of our sages. There's hundreds of sages, genius people, but Rashi is something really, really special. And at the very least, and at least everyone should study one tractate of Talmud every year. Have a good day with Moshiach now, God willing. Today we'll learn in the Chumash class, 3 o'clock, of the tragic story of Nadav and Avihu, Aaron's 2 precious holy sons that went into the Holy of Holies uninvited and were killed by God. Tune in at 3 o'clock and learn more. Have a good day with Moshiach now.